Hi there, I'm Richie Kotzen, and welcome to the Young Guitar Issue, where I will talk about the new record I just finished working on by the Winery Dogs. And the record is called Hot Streak, and I'm going to tell you what to expect from this upcoming release. So as you probably know, Billy Sheehan, Mike Portnoy, and myself started a band a few years ago called the Winery Dogs. It is a power trio, which is a format that I'm very comfortable playing in. Most of my musical endeavors have been in that format as it relates to playing live. And I'm very excited because we just finished our second record. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the writing process. Basically, what we did was got together in the studio at my house and just jammed for like 5 days. And we would kind of start out with maybe a drum beat, or Billy would come in with a bass line, or I'd play a chord progression. And we would develop the songs musically into sections. So you'd have your intro, verse, chorus, maybe a bridge, a solo section. And we kind of sketched out some rough skeletons, which would later become songs. We ended up with 15 or 16 of these rough skeletons, and I took a few months to kind of live with them and get away from them for a while, and then came back and had some ideas for lyrics and melodies. So at that point, took these skeletons and turned them into actual compositions that you folks can listen to and sing along with. The key is, for someone that doesn't do this kind of thing instinctively, is, you know, connecting with the instrument in your voice. So, I'm not really thinking about the guitar when I do that. I'm thinking about what I'm singing. And my hands somehow instinctively are able to go to the notes. Now I can break down what the notes are. And it sounds kind of dull, you know, and uninteresting, lacking personality. The things that give it the personality, it's obviously the instinct of how you hear and feel it. But to break that down in a way that someone that's new to this might understand, is there are things that are happening. There are accents, there are rests, there's space, and there's actual notes that aren't even totally played, but more insinuated. So if you hear me do it with the voice, I'll do it one more time. I wanted to play a D, and I played a D, but rather than just go and play normally, I went behind it, and I pre-bent the note, and then bent down before I went to the next note that I wanted to play. So I did it twice in a row. So I did it here with the D. Times there. I tend to, if I can find a note that I can allow to ring and move above that, I do that a lot. And that's something that's kind of interesting, because a lot of times when people come to my shows, be it with my solo band or even with the Winery Dogs, you hear people say, "Oh, you guys are a trio," which sounds really big. Well, there's a couple of tricks to that as a guitar player, if you're accustomed to playing in a trio. And that is, if you have some strings that you can let ring while you're still able to play around them, you have more tonal content happening. And it can almost sound like there is another player, even if it's a note or two. But anyway, you can hear the difference when you can add some of those pedal tones, so to speak, underneath your improv and your soloing. Even the low strings will work if you're in E. So what we're looking at here is my live rig. Just this little bit is really all I take with me. And the main component here is this Tech21 Rk5 Fly Rig is what it's called. And this is something that you can buy at your music store. It's a delay pedal. And this is a delay featuring a tap tempo, so you can just tap this button with your foot to change the tempo. You got a level control, which is how you blend the dry signal versus the delay. You got your repeats that you can set. You have the time thing, which I don't really bother with because I have the tap tempo, so these two things kind of do the same gag. Unless you're doing some kind of spaceship sound, if you crank this and hit a note, you can make some crazy sounds by turning that. And then the other nice feature has a drift control, so if you use this, you can kind of create the illusion of a chorus type effect by just using a little bit of the drift and getting the right tempo on the time selector. This is the Overdrive, and this was really what took the most time to develop. We spent a good 6 months experimenting until we found out what it is that I really like in an overdrive and how to build it. And that's what this is. So you have your level control, you have your drive, and then you have a tone control that works much like the tone control on your guitar amp. Okay, so if this is full out, I believe I'm correct in saying that it's not really doing much other than letting the signal go through. And if it's too bright, you simply roll this back. It'll always be bright enough, but you can roll this back. And that's kind of how that works. Obviously the drive is the amount of distortion, and then there's a boost feature which obviously does exactly what it says, boosts the signal. So let's say you don't want to use the Sans amp, you can set this flat, and when you turn it on, it'll just be a reverb. So that's how I normally use it. I have this set as a reverb. So now I've got two-stage overdrive, delay, and reverb. However, let's say I go somewhere and they don't have a 100-watt hand-wired Marshall Plexi, and I got to play through something else, maybe an amp that's a cleaner kind of amp. I can then turn this on and literally revoice this foreign amp that I'm not familiar with, and get a really cool sound to emulate what I'm used to, and use the reverb or not, you know. Wireless, and I love this wireless because it's meant to live right on the pedal board. So rather than having two long cables, I have one cable. Let me talk about the wah pedal, and one more feature about this. If you notice here, that's a stereo cable. The reason why is this pedal is sending phantom power to my wah pedal, which has been modified to see DC voltage on the output. Now this is a great modification because it means I only have to plug in one thing, and there's no batteries involved. So I plug this in with the adapter they provided, and not only powers this pedal, but it sends phantom power to the wah, and I don't have to worry about a battery or a second adapter. So that's a mod that I would recommend anyone that buys this, they do that mod. Talk a little bit about the wah. This wah, as you can see, it's called the Fire Classic Bobber wah. This is made in Brazil, and some friends of mine down there turned me on to this thing. A couple things about it that I like, other than the fact that it's small and compact, which I love when you can make things smaller for some reason. Less stuff to worry about, I guess, to carry around. Okay, so we're standing in my little studio area. I have two rooms here. This room where I have my amps and my drums, and then the other room is the control room. As far as what did I use on the record, I used this 412 cabinet right here. As you can see, it's a Marshall cabinet. And believe it or not, the majority of the guitar sounds as far as the amplification was this amp here, which is made by Cornford. We did this amp together back in 2004. You see it has my signature on it. It's a signature model amp. Unfortunately, it's not in production anymore. But when I was going through all the amps trying to get tone, I went back to this and pulled it out, and I realized that it just sounds pretty badass. And so that amp is the majority, not all of it, but a good chunk of what you're hearing on the Winery Dog record. When you're not hearing that, I have a Marshall hand-wired Plexi that's orange that matches this, but it's not here right now. so I can't show it to you, but that amp was used on the record as well. In addition to, for example, there's a song called Ghost Town, and on that song I used two amps together. I used this little Marshall, which I love this amp. It's called a 1974X, and it just records wonderfully. It's not very loud, but it's simple. Two knobs, volume, tone, and you can get so many different sounds out of that amp. So for the song Ghost Town, I wanted this kind of big, floating kind of sound. So I linked that with this amp over here, which is called a Vibrolux, Fender Vibrolux, another one of my favorite amps. And so I didn't have it on the cabinet. They were that was on the ground with that. I had a microphone on that, one on that, and I think I had a couple room mics as well. And so with this amp we had the reverb happening, and then with that amp we had the tremolo happening. And so it was stereo, and it kind of has this kind of cool stereo imaging effect with those two amps. It's also on the song Spiral. I'm playing this kind of like kind of open chordal type thing, and so I used this on that. And this is an amp that I actually put together. I ordered it on the internet. It came in pieces. It was a kit, and so I looked at the schematic and I was able to figure out what went where. I ordered a case online, and my daughter scribbled a bunch of nonsense on it. And this is an amp that I actually used to gig with around town. Is this one here. This is the guitar that you've been seeing me use live now for, I don't know, the last 6 or 7 years at least. And it's basically, it's one of my signature models, like right off the rack. The only thing I do to the guitar is I sand the finish off the neck. I put this drop D tuner on here, which lately I really very rarely even use anymore. So I could live without that at this point, but it's on there. It's something I used to use years ago. And then the other thing that I did was I put a tuner on there. So this switch turns the tuner on and off. It's an onboard tuner that just makes life easy for me when I'm in the dressing room, for example, and I bang into the wall with the guitar, or I trip, or somebody bumps into me, or some other kind of situation. I can check my tuning without it being a movie, you know. That you can't see. You'll hear electric piano on the record. That piano is in this anvil case. You've seen me play it in a music video. You've seen me play it live with the Winery Dogs. It's made by a company called Vintage Vibe. It's an electric piano, and it's somewhere between a Wurlitzer and a Fender Rhodes. It has its own sound. It really does. And I happen to love it. The guys that work there are great people. So that's what's in there. I don't have the original Hammond organ, but I use this, which is made by Hammond, and I plug it into this, which is a Leslie cabinet with the spinning, horns, and pretty much doing that whole gag. I mean, if I was playing the organ and it was a feature thing, maybe I would have the real one. But for the kind of things I'm doing, where it's just kind of parts and just flavor, this thing is really comes very close to a real Hammond organ, and it's easy to deal with. I just take it in the other room, run the cable, mic it, and it sounds wonderful. In here is what you would call the control room. And so when I'm making my records, I spend most of my time in this room, sitting in front of the speakers with guitar like this, and then I'll play something. I'll have my pedal here, and then I'll start and stop. I'll run the Pro Tools and I'll try it again. Pro Tools, try it again, until eventually I get it right. And it's the same kind of situation if I'm cutting a vocal. I'll show you the stuff that I use to record. I use this system called Pro Tools that you've probably heard of. So that's down there. And then I have all this stuff. Basically, it's just different brands of mic preamps. So you notice there's Neve, Manley, API, Telefunken. These are my two new favorite things, made by a company called Overstare, and the man who designed this happens to be from Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and also happens to be my next door neighbor. So he brought these over, and I love them. This is an amazing compressor, and this is a mic preamp that is so easy to use. Has a gain control and output, a compressor, and a tone control, and a few switches to add some harmonics and do some different things. And I ended up using that on a lot of my lead vocals on the record. Towards the end of the recording process, he brought that over, and I ended up using that on at least half of the record. The other half I used the Neve, and then on a couple songs I was plugged into the Manley with that compressor because I wanted a different kind of sound for those specific songs that I was recording. This guitar I didn't use on the record, but I'll show it to you because it's kind of cool. I painted it, and I had bought this creepy puppet in Prague, and I had him on the bus on one of my solo tours, and we named him LeBron. And so we were doing these little video things about this puppet and making him talk, and we were putting him on the internet, and all the fans were talking about LeBron. At one time they were chanting his name after one of the songs. It was kind of funny. So I painted him on the guitar, and then that's supposed to be me. This one, a lot of solos on this guitar, a lot of rhythms. Very important guitar. This is the first Telecaster I ever bought. And it used to be yellow. I took the finish off and painted it this horrible red, and carved my name in the back just so if anyone tried to take it, they would know that it was mine. And then I changed the neck. I put one of my signature necks on, and it's just a really great sounding guitar. It plays well. I have this. This is a Yamaha guitar, and I like it because it has this thing on it. It sounds lonely. So you'll hear this song, guitar all over the record. You'll hear it on Ghost Town. You'll hear it on the bridge. You'll hear it in the rhythm track on the song Captain Love. I might have played 4 chords. I know I played at least 4 or 5 chords on the record on it. In Ghost Town, there's a part, or whatever the part is, I don't remember, but I doubled something with this along with that. This guitar is what they call chambered, so it's like hollow inside, and it just has a different sound to it because of the chambers. So I use this on certain things for tonalities. And I also played my Strats on this record, and you can hear it. I think there's a couple solos I did. The solo to Hot Streak is on the Strat. And you know, it just has such a distinct sound. This is my signature model Stratocaster, which I believe they still sell. I use this quite a bit too. So it's a combination of things. You know, it's like when you pick an instrument, so you're painting a picture with these songs, with the music. So you know, it's nice to have some other little brushes to grab just to create some other strokes, for lack of a better term. So that's pretty much it. That's what I used on the record, and this is where I did all my parts. I hope you enjoy it. So that's it, folks. I'm happy to have been able to sit down with you and talk about the new Winery Dog record, which is called Hot Streak, and break down some of the parts that I played on the record. Hopefully, for those of you that are curious to play some of these songs, once you hear them, it'll give you a little insight into what it is that I do when I make these records. And that's really it. Thank you, Young Guitar, for coming over and filming me. And have a great evening, great day, great life. Peace.